I started Forex trading when I was 19 years old. This is what happened. What's up and welcome to this video. Now I've just transitioned into the next phase, the next chapter of my trading journey. Haven't really talked about it so far and I'm not going to in this video. However, over the next few weeks, over the next month or two, I will definitely, tell you guys about it, share that with you and document the process as always. But for right now, with this checking point in mind, I think it's important to kind of take a look back on the previous 3 years from coming into the markets at the back end of 2016 and just take a look at the entire journey so far, any mistakes, lessons learned, the whole process of what I went through, and any advice or information I'll give to my younger self or you guys who are watching this video right now that I believe may be beneficial to your journey if you are just starting out or you may be a year, 2 year, 3 years in as well. So let's get into that right now, starting at the beginning stages of the journey. Coming into the markets at the back end of 2016, so this is around November, late November, December time, not too much of the year to go, and I was trying to just learn basic knowledge. So what I basically did back then was going to baby pips. I was in a little Forex trading group on Facebook too, just really absorbing information from the people around me. They were a lot better than me at the time, and I was the newbie coming into the group, so I didn't have a clue what I was doing, did not have any knowledge apart from the very basics, apart from what is a pip, how much is traded within the financial markets each day, and the fact that it was bigger than the stock market. So I didn't have too much knowledge, as you can tell, but I was very open to learning. I was very open to put myself in that situation to just absorb as much knowledge as I could from different people. So that's what I did. That's where the journey kind of began from there. I'm sure you'd agree that a lot of people start out in trading with that intention to acquire money through the process. Now, what I think a lot of people realize throughout the process as well, even though they're going after that prize, is that they realize that freedom along the way is equally as important, if not more important, than the money itself. That's something that I had in mind too, but I always just had that bigger vision of, okay, well, trading is that vehicle to take me from where I am right now to where I want to be. So in the back of my mind all the time, that was always the thing. I was at the bigger vision. I think an asset for me going into the trading itself, psychological wise, is that I never approach trading in the respect that I'm going to do this from a little bit of income, or I'm going to do this as a side hustle, or I'm going to do this on the weekends to make an extra £200, to make an extra $200. And that wasn't my mentality. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of friends from high school and that kind of thing try and start trading, and they've always gone into trading with that mindset, and because of that they've always dropped out, whether it's weeks, whether it's months, whether it's years later. In most circumstances it's either weeks or months, and that tends to be the reason, because if you're going into something, from my experience anyway, with that short-term mentality that you want to acquire income, fast, you want it quick, get rich quick, you want it now, you don't want to put a lot of work in, you want to do it now, have it next weekend so that you can live your life. It's just, I don't want to say it's the wrong mentality, but at the same time it is the wrong mentality in my opinion. So I know I'm just kind of contradicting myself, but at the same time I just think you're thinking short term, and that's what I see a lot of people do, and that's what I've seen a lot of people do, and those kind of people tend to be the people that either figure out that that's the wrong mentality and switch that, or equally just drop off and try something else. That's where shiny ball syndrome creeps in, of trying Amazon FBA, dropshipping, business, all these kind of different things. But the key is just to find your thing, and sometimes you have to experiment, don't get me wrong, but then just to stick to it. So no matter if it takes you 3 years, 5 years, max 10 years, it's probably not going to take you 10 years, but let's say like max 3-5 years. If it takes you 3-5 years to master your craft and get to a decent level within that, then at least you're at a good stage by that point. Whereas if you're just switching and you give it, let's say you give it 2-3 years each craft, you could spend 10 years going from each different business idea, each different market, and then before you know it, 10-15 years have gone by and you haven't really gotten anywhere. So that was always in the back of my mind. I wanted to focus on something and then stick to it. When I was starting out around that time, I never really had any intentions of being in the 9-to-5 in the corporate workforce for a long time. I was prepared to do it, short term, to build up a bit of capital, build up skills along the way to then transfer into my life. But longer term, I'm talking 3, 5, 10 years, plus. You know, a lot of people have been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So in the grand scheme of things, 3, 5, 10 years isn't a long time. But I never saw myself going down that corporate route for the long term. Always had that bigger vision of wanting to do something more. You know, think bigger, always set yourself higher targets, and then just smash them out of the water. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you fall short, but because you've got that ambition backing you, behind you, then you fall short of a very big target. So there's nothing really to lose in that aspect, in my opinion. So that was my intention coming into the markets. I wanted to make money, of course, but I always had that bigger vision, that bigger intention behind it. So rolling into 2017, now my intention going into this year was of course to learn a lot, learn as much as I could, absorb information from the people around me in terms of traders that I looked up to and had access to. So at the time I've spoke about this in previous videos very early on, but I didn't have anyone to kind of bounce ideas off or talk to in terms of trading. I had like 1 or 2 people that were just looking to start out, but then dropped off quite early on. So naturally I was just by myself for a lot of time. What really helped me, and a lot of you may be the same if you're looking to kind of get in contact with people or learn to surround yourself with other people. For me, it was actually putting myself on social media. So the moment I started to document my trading journey on Instagram itself back in 2017, that's when people started to reach out, people started to comment on my posts, I started to connect with them, figure out that some of them was in a similar area to me. I figured out that 2 of them were in Manchester, so I met with them quite regularly as well. And then you just form like a group of people, and then that's where the networks kind of grows from there. But without that, like it can be, I don't want to say lonely, because I look back and it's like you kind of need those isolated times too, and that wouldn't bother me right now. But at the same time, I was quite young as well, didn't have anyone to kind of talk to about trading, especially learn and absorb information off. So that was definitely a factor. I wanted to get myself into a community. I wanted to, you know, surround myself with a lot of like-minded people. Hence why I got involved in a course and then later a community, which is Falcon later down the line. I believe that was June 2017. So that was my intention going into the year, learn as much as possible, and then surround myself with a lot of like-minded traders, either developing themselves or in the situation that I want to be in. Now, 2017 results-wise was not the best. Didn't really have too much to show for it. Yes, I'd have profitable trades here and there, and you know, everyone kind of has that, but was there any real consistency within that first year? Definitely not. It was kind of all over the place, kind of, you know, just developing my way, and you kind of go through lessons in terms of you think you reach a certain stage, but then the market humbles you real quick. So I've been through that quite a few times. This is not just the one time, but this is just natural market experience. This is bound to happen very early on in your trading journey. So it definitely happened to me. I got my first share, and 2017 was a good year overall, but trading results wise, definitely not the best. But you can expect that within the first year. I didn't have any intentions in terms of I want to make a certain percent per year, or want to do this, or want to do that. I didn't have that mentality back then, which is it's probably a good thing, especially starting out, because I was just an open box. I was just a sponge. I just wanted to absorb, gather information, see what I could use, what I couldn't use, and I was very naive back then. But at the same time, I was just open to absorbing as much information as I could, and that was an asset too. 2018 was a big year for me personally, both progression wise and just seeing more development within everything. So I saw a lot of more growth within the markets too. So I couldn't call myself consistent back then because I wasn't seeing consistent month after month, but I was definitely seeing profitable months. I definitely had a few profitable trades. I was building that confidence up, but I still had a lot to learn. You know, I look back on that time right now and I'm like, I was very basic in the knowledge that I had. But at the same time, when you're in that position, you don't realize that. You know, I'll probably look back on this video 2 years down the line and realize the exact same thing. It's all a process, it's all a learning curve, and you're always going to look back on your past self and realize how much you've grown and how much you've progressed. It's one of the beauties of the journey itself. So I kind of like that. But in terms of, yeah, results wise, I wasn't consistent back then, but I was hitting some bad months and some good months. It was kind of 50-50, wasn't consistent, but I'd had some experience in profitable months and stuff. So yeah, that was good. And I had a lot going on in 2018. So at the time, starting out the year, I was still working that 9 to 5. I was still going to college. I had a few tests coming up in college too, and just a lot going on. So I just had a lot going on. I would say stress, because it wasn't really stress compared to what people kind of see, you know, but at the same time, definitely a lot going on, and I wanted to allocate more time to my trading, but I couldn't do that, which was causing a lot of frustration within myself. I just wanted to get out of that situation and just put myself into push my comfort zone, you know. I was waiting for that opportunity to come up, and the opportunity did actually come up. So January, February rolls around, I'm still working 9 to 5. You know, I wasn't sleeping much at that point anyway. I think I've talked about this before. All you have to do is go back to my first 2 or 3 videos, realize how slow I'm talking. I'm talking very, very slow. You've got to be watching it on 1.5 speed, like legit. But yeah, very, very slow. Couldn't think straight because I wasn't sleeping too much, and just a lot going on within my life. But I then took the opportunity, the chance to then go part-time when that came up. Not for the same company, this was actually for a family and friends business. But what that allowed me to do is then slowly transition into full-time working, into a full-time trader over time. You know, not straight, you know, cold turkey into full-time working into full-time trading, but slowly put myself out there in that position to be a full-time trader in the future. So I put myself in that position. I cut my hours down from around, well, I was working 9 to 5 into then 4 or 5 hours a day. So it was a little bit less. It allowed me to allocate a lot more time to my trading and just learn, develop my routine. I've heard a lot of people talk about their routines when they go from straight full-time working to full-time trading. A lot of people tend to slip off, realize they haven't got a boss anymore, they've got total freedom and they can do whatever they want to do, but yet kind of forget about their routine. It's pretty much exactly what happened to me. I still kept a lot of discipline. I still was getting up at the same time every day, bar here and there. I was still keeping the focus and discipline, but I could still see that mentality of, well, I've got all day to do this now, creep in a little bit. So that kind of affected me for the first couple of months until I actually realized that, snapped out of it, and then grew beyond that. But it definitely did affect me. But yeah, coming into February, March, I just transitioned out of a 9 to 5, experiencing live trading from more of an active point of view. I couldn't really trade in work before, you know, I was taking trades here and there, but it wasn't really beneficial because I couldn't spend time on the markets. Whereas here I could spend time on the London session, I could develop my skill on the live markets and gain that experience a little bit more. So that was 2018 for me, just a lot of live market experience and kind of just developing that knowledge a lot further, learning, continuously learning, and then putting that into practice. 2019. Now 2019 was probably my biggest year apart from this year, in terms of overall growth within the markets, overall just how I felt within myself. So definitely a lot of growth in 2019. This is when I actually broke through into consistency, seeing some consistency within the markets. Coming into 2020, that started to slack off and then build back up again. So I've gone through that whole process over the last few months. But 2019 was when it really kind of kicked off. Started to see a lot more results within the market, which was really good to kind of see, especially after all that time of, you know, working, hard work, dedication, sacrifice, all that kind of stuff. Although I enjoyed it, it's good to see some tangible kind of things come out of that, which was good. So got my first experience with that come, I think that was August, September time, leading into Q3, Q4, which was really good. So 2019 was a good year, experienced a few different things. This is when I got more into the whole community thing, became a team member, as you guys will have seen the entire journey too. So that was definitely good. It allowed me to kind of develop myself outside of trading and inside of trading, in the respect that I had more access to more knowledge and I could kind of build that up as well. And then also just developing other skills in terms of my speaking ability, being able to talk to different people a lot more and stuff like that. So it was very beneficial. And last but not least, 2020. What can I say about 2020? A lot to say about 2020, in all honesty. I think this year is so frequent in my mind, so fresh. I'm going to be able to explain this in a little bit more detail. So it's been a challenging year. I think it's been a very, very challenging year in some aspects, but equally a lot of growth has come out of those challenging times at the same time. So as a collective, I think even you guys watching this video will all have had challenges or things to overcome this year, any difficulty, whether that's within yourself, whether that's psychologically, whether that's, you know, physically, whether that's financially, whatever it is. I think we've all had different things to overcome this year. So it's been an interesting year. I think as a collective, as an entire planet, I think, you know, there's just a mass awakening. I think a lot of people are realizing different things, not only about themselves, but around in terms of how the world works and all this kind of stuff as well. So I think as a collective, I think a lot of people have learned a lot, including myself. Definitely had a lot of different awakenings this year, a lot of different knowledge that has been acquired through different research and just experience as well. But yeah, it's been an interesting year. I think, where do I start? Well, so coming into 2020, now I had January, February were really, really good for me personally, slightly on the slower front, but at the same time, I developed that consistency from Q3, Q4 last year, building into Q1. So everything was kind of going really well. Everything was going really well. Everything was optimized. You know, I developed myself to a certain degree, to a certain foundational level, and I was keen to just take that forward, take that to the next level. And then March came around. March was an interesting one. Let's just say that up until that point, I was looking to, you know, had goals in mind in terms of acquiring additional capital and kind of all this stuff, which definitely got pushed back a few months due to March, April, May. So March was when this whole kind of thing, I think it was the back end of February when all this kind of thing kicked off. Now, in normal market conditions, volatility is our friend, of course. We want to see volatility. It gives the market movement to be able to capitalize on trades. However, there's a line in the sand as well. If you're seeing 200 pip movements in the space of a few hours, it's very wicky, it's very erratic. The market's all over the place. Stop sizes increase automatically with the increase in volatility. Things change. So when that time period came around, I didn't really have the prior experience to be able to deal with that. So naturally, that kind of, it was a difficult period. Let's put it that way. March, April, May, and then I think June was pretty erratic. I think March and April were the worst, and then leading into May, June, July, that was a little bit, wasn't in the normal market conditions either. But yeah, I'd say mostly March and April were definitely like open my eyes kind of moment. Learned a lot about the markets and just kind of got humbled a lot, to be fair, because I developed that consistency to a decent point. Then I kind of had to take a step back and be like, cool, okay, now I've got to reevaluate a few different things. I need to optimize things. What if this happens in the future? Can I basically I had a decent foundational knowledge, but what I was basically trying to do is optimize things further. And then also I had the thought of, okay, well, what if this actually comes around in the future? What if there's going to be more pandemics, there's going to be more this kind of stuff? I need different things to put in place in different market environments. So that was in the back of my mind too. There's a few different things like that. I was kind of opening up my awareness to that sort of knowledge, to be able to tap into that. So that was in the back of my mind. But yeah, March, April, May were difficult months. And then moving into May, so May was the month, the back end of the month, which I chose to close my journey with Falcon. So I learned a lot up until that point. You know, there's prior 3 years, I think it was 2 years, I'd learned a lot of different knowledge, but then wanted to expand on that further, you know, so I wanted to deepen that knowledge, my understanding of the markets and myself, and just go off and do my own thing for a while, gain that experience, learn the hard lessons for myself. I said that in a video when I was about to leave. I said there's going to be hard times ahead. I knew that, and there definitely was. But then out of those hard times, breathe the success, breathe the good times, because ultimately what you're doing is just taking 2 steps back to go 4, 5, 6 steps forward. So glad I did that. I wouldn't have ticked off the goals that I have ticked off in the last few weeks had I stayed in that position. But ultimately, that was a difficult decision at the time. It was very, very difficult. It took me at least a few weeks to kind of decide that, especially with my history with Falcon 2. But yeah, on good terms with everything Falcon-wise, really, really good, and just learned a lot of different knowledge that. So very, very grateful, and I learned a lot of different knowledge and contacts from that experience. But I was ready to kind of move on, do my own thing. So pretty grateful for my ability to just back myself and just go all in, even though people around me were telling me it was the wrong decision. So just grateful that I just followed my instinct and my gut feeling and my intuition on that. You know, I trust my intuition through everything. It's never really led me wrong before. So if my intuition tells me something, it has to be backed by logic, don't get me wrong, but I trust it. So that led me into a path of more development, more knowledge, more testing, and I've just done a lot of different testing and different things since then that I've been keeping sort of quiet. I've kind of mentioned a few different things, but I'll talk about that in future videos as well when the time is right. But yeah, a lot of different testing. I've just finished up with phase 4. I'm about to dig into one more phase to finalize a few little refinements. I'm talking minuscule to optimize things a little bit further, but the foundational fundamentals have been put in place for the next leg of my journey. and then potentially looking into acquiring more knowledge on the institutional level, like institutional kind of how the bigger banks and tier 1 bankers work and stuff like that. So keen to kind of dig into that and expand the awareness a little bit more as well. But in terms of the journey so far, 2020 so far, it's just been a roller coaster. It's honestly been a big roller coaster. But at the same time, I couldn't be more grateful for what's happened, because it's changed me for the better. Through hard times comes growth. And of course, at the time of this video, it's only October. I do expect a few different worldly events to take place and stuff that can potentially happen in the next few months. So it's going to be an interesting one. But at the same time, for me, it's just not letting those kind of things that's happening with the world distract me from my vision, distract me from my purpose, distract me from my goals for this year. Because regardless of what's going to happen, I'm going to achieve my goals. I'm going to achieve my goals regardless. So it's just something that I repeat in my head. 2020 is my best year. 2020 is my year. I've been saying that all year. And even through those hard times, 2020 is my year. Just that affirmation constantly. Boom, boom, boom. So it's been a big year. I've kept a lot of it quiet in terms of from July, August onwards, but we'll talk about that in future videos. But yeah, ready for Q4, goals set, everything sorted, and it's just the momentum built from Q2 and Q3 leading into Q4. So I'm excited for what the rest of the year brings. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a kind of journey through my whole process so far. Still pretty much early stages, but developing into that next phase of the journey, which I'm excited to take you through as well. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below. And I will see you in next week's video. Speak to you all soon. We'll be right back.